Well. Greetings, my fellow freedom sovereign thinkers. This is LL3's newest podcast. My name is Craig, transmitting from the beautiful Beehive State, which is also known as Utah. And today's date, Sunday, August 7th, 2016. Of course, just another day, I would say. Just got off of work, a little bit tired, had to be a little bit more at ease. We got to take care of a few things. So I said, what the hell, I'm going to take initiative on doing a show. Once again, I'm in downtown Salt Lake City, which is interesting. Like, you could park here, you could park at the meters for free all day Sunday. Hey! But, a lot of stores and restaurants are closed, so you have to really choose wisely. So, yeah, so some interesting few things. A bunch of stuff is happening, of course. The whole political debacle and what's going on with Hillary Clinton and many other things. Of course, you got Harry Reid telling the CIA should do an evaluation on Donald Trump. It's like, hey, listen, hearing that from Harry Reid is like me going to the bathroom and having diarrhea. I'll find it more intriguing than that, than his pretentious rhetoric. When you even hear a stooge like him, a freedom-hating demonade, that's Harry Reid. Just another example of an Uncle Tom to the establishment. And he's going to make all these bickering about him. And doesn't matter if you like Donald Trump or not. It's just hysterical. So come on. People aren't buying the dog and pony show, your pathetic bread and circuses, okay? Walmart shoppers are more interesting, the way they dress, than listening to him also. So that's my favorite outhouse, by the way, is Walmart. So all you Walmart shoppers don't like it, too bad. I don't care. They need me more, I need them. So, oh yeah, and of course, it's going to be talking a few things, mostly what's going on in South Florida with the spray and Bitcoin. Looks like they got hacked. That'll be the first thing I'll be talking about. And plus, John McCain's Tokyo Rose recordings. That's really interesting. And a few other things, mostly 1984 stuff as well. And I'll just start off right now. Actually came from Susan Posel, came out today. Bitcoin from OccupyCorporatism.com. And it's entitled Bitcoin Exchange Hacked and Passing the Losses Onto Customers. And as it reads here, Bitfinex, based out of Hong Kong, is still reeling after a devastating hack, but now the company wants to pass the losses on to the customers. It's like shoplifting, right? You gotta raise the rates. In a blog post, Bitfinex explained we're leaning towards a socialized loss scenario among Bitcoin balances and active loans to BTUSD positions. Bitfinex is still settling positions and balances and will provide more details soon. As far as the U.S. dollar exchanges go, Bitfinex was the biggest prior to the hack that sent the company plunging more than 20% of the market. The hackers made off with 119,756 Bitcoins, or $68 million. Oh, on Reddit, Bitfinex said users who either had Bitcoin deposit at an exchange or who were in the process of lending U.S. dollars for margin trading would be affected. The most disturbing part of this is the Raphael Nicole, founder and CEO of Bitfinex, has been known to invest in Ponzi schemes, such as in 2012 while in France, Nicole filled with his Bitcoin orders by asking everyone that previously registered with me to lend me some Bitcoin. Oh, okay. By promising to return the Bitcoins after a week with 2% interest added on, Nicole decided to do apparage. I buy low and sell high. That's like a typical marketing scheme, right? Yeah, it's nothing new. Journalist Isabella Kamenaska questioned legalities in Bitfinex's predicament, such as a squatter's rights when it comes to Bitcoins with respect to a market overt rule. Kamenaska explained while Bitfinex plans to victimize their customers, they are still going to be entitled to track the funds across the blockchain to seek recourse from so ever receives the bitcoins in their accounts. In fact, Kimasaka points out just one successful claim by a victim who tracks his funds to an unidentifiable third party, and the president is set. An exchange dealing with Bitcoin in a legitimate capacity would, from then, be on decline to do much stronger due diligence on whether the Bitcoins being deposited in their system were connected to ill-gotten gains. This in turn would open the door to the blacklisting of funds that cannot prove they were originated honestly via legitimate earnings. Well, you always got to be vigilant when you do these certain investments and so forth. And it's really, really interesting. Can this hack be an inside job? According to this article, allegedly yes, but we don't know for sure. But one thing I always tell everyone out there about the Bitcoin thing, everything else is a risk. Whatever you do, never leave all your eggs in one basket. And I understand too, you want to challenge the Federal Reserve System with the fiat money, but always, like I said, try to keep everything in a balance. Don't put everything in one area, and always prefer for folks who's using Bitcoin have always have sound money as well. Gold and silver, those us a better investment. But like I said, has its pros and cons like everything else. You're always going to expect flaws in systems, including Bitcoin, respectfully speaking. But it's interesting, $68 million of Bitcoins, or 119,656 in Bitcoins that got hacked. So this is one thing you always have to observe. And the victims can be you, and they want to ding you a little bit more. It's like if someone shoplifts and people shoplifting certain products, what happens? They have to raise the prices to make it up. But always remain vigilant when it comes to these entities, and I always say that in good faith. But one thing I'll for sure expect to try to restructure and make it more solid, because this is like part of the whole digital cyber warfare, I would say. And that's like one interesting thing about that. So I'm not gonna go do a whole song and dance on Bitcoin, but it is pretty intriguing when you look at all these things on what they're great, what they're good about, and so forth. So always, like I said, always be vigilant whatever you invest in. Okay, my friends. So speaking of that, this came out yesterday by Lisa Haven a couple of days ago. It's called here by somebody. She posted on beforeitsnews.com. And of course, people complain about this site. And the whole thing is, there's a lot of journalists and writers. They put links. They put their blogs on this site. However, Lisa Havens, I know she's actually endorsed Scene.life with the whole Facebook thing and the privacy stuff, like because they say Facebook's anti-privacy, which I understand. But like I said, I always tell people always utilize Facebook in your own way, because it's how people that know me personally understand how I do my thing on that page. However, that's not part of the subject. It came out here, which a lot of us been talking about it. This here, UN vehicle flood America. Here's 100 truth. No media outlet is telling you about these vehicles. And it put it under police state, okay? And it says here, first and foremost, the threat of a police state and preparations for martial law in major cities should be taken seriously. It's not just some conspiracy theory. Consider the rise of the mainstream media full of terrorist attacks, race riots, and skyrocketing numbers of mass shootings. Then one can't help but believe there is an agenda on the table. That's right. You always got to see things a bigger picture. When they overexploit it, it's called a distraction. Remember that, the weapon of mass distraction. And we'll continue on here. Nor can one ignore the fact that for decades, U.S. law enforcement, from the federal to local levels, have been primed for domestic civil uprisings. Jade Helm was one example. And currently, our National Guard is conducting drills in Michigan, where they are training with foreign military. Drills like this are happening was increased frequently. You can look up some articles too, like U.S. troops training in Australia with the Australians and so forth. So they gotta see things, see things really thoroughly. Okay, I will continue on. Furthermore, the arming of multiple federal civilian agencies in the footsteps of militarized police with the EPA, the FDA, the IRS, the Fish and Wildlife Department, and National Oceanic and Atmospheric Administrations. What? Department of Veteran Affairs, the U.S. Postal Service, the Social Security Administration, who together purchased 6 billion rounds of lethal hollow point bullets. And if you went to government slaves and so forth, I posted this stuff years ago about Homeland Security buying these rounds, hollow point bullets. Speaks volumes of how Obama is marching Americans into submission. Neither we can ignore the multiple executive orders issued that grant the president ultimate supreme power over citizens during peace times. Section 102, National Defense Resource Preparedness Executive Order, and war times. This includes complete control over air, water, transportation, food, education, and etc. So technically, it's saying you gotta cross your arms and go sing Big Brother, read your teleprompter, hooray! 1984, right? With the passage of the NDAA, our government continues to operate with impunity, overriding posse comitatus and allowing military unchecked power to arrest, detain, interrogate, and even assassinate American patriots. This includes detaining them indefinitely without cause. We are losing our freedoms by the minute, on paper, but not as individuals. All this is to say the threat is real, which she's correct. The documents are real. Any idiot who tells you otherwise can just rest in their stupidity. But what really ticks me off is the fact that those on the opposing side scream, see, conspiracy theorists were wrong. No martial law has been enacted, nor we are living in a police state. Yeah, can you tell me why? Can you explain to me, to those dinkleberries out there, that they had some police helicopter drills in South downtown Fort Lauderdale, right in front of the courthouse and the Broward County School Board building up to Southeast 6th Street and Southeast 3rd Avenue. Explain that. There's videos on that too. Even the New American addressed it. That's in my past archives, so you can check it out yourselves. The truth is never said martial law happened or is happening now and forever. With Jade Helm, we said it was a preparation for the future event of martial law and a police state. Yet the mainstream media flips it and states conspiracy theorists said it would happen right now and forever. Amen. And sadly, people believe these fools. Now, don't get me wrong, our country has enacted temporary martial law in some locations due to riots and uprisings that will likely happen off and on in the future. Nothing is forever, amen. As for the police state, however, I want to say to those people, wake the hell up. Don't you see the constant surveillance on the internet, on your iPhones, your appliances, for crying out loud? Yep, remember, watch that movie, THX 1138, that was directed by George Lucas. And who was in that movie? Sid Haig. That's right. He's been around, my friend. Check that movie out, THX 1138. It came out in 1974, if I'm correct. And it says here, those people need a real smack in the head. Now, let's take this one step further. Recently, United Nations vehicles were spotted all across America, from Virginia to Kentucky and Texas and more. One can't help but ask the question, why are these foreign vehicles on U.S. soil? It's like seeing Iranian military vehicles driving across the country and we're supposed to ignore it? Give me a break. Yet we are allowing this to happen. But what makes this even more upsetting is the fact that the United Nations accepted responsibility and the U.S. did nothing. But just what was their excuse? According to Alpine Armoring, reported manufacturer in Virginia, the vehicles seen on the internet were purchased by the United Nations for use outside the United States. A number of defense industry manufacturers in and around Washington, D.C. area, a region that includes Virginia, are based there for obvious logistical reasons, and their representative confirmed that the trucks were ordered by the UN for use in undisclosed locations abroad. What I see is the United Nations hired a company to create a militarized vehicles for the use in an undisclosed locations abroad, meaning it could be for Russia, the Middle East, China, Israel, nobody knows. Bottom line, Alpine Armoring also conducts work for the U.S. Department of Defense. Therefore, should they not be charged with treason? After all, they did sell U.S. technology to a global organization and then turned it around and built similar techs for the U.S. Let's call it what it is, truly selling our top secret technology to a foreign agency for use in any international country. This is pure outrage. Considering no one was charged with treason, then one must assume the U.S. is in the league with the United Nations, where we are, after all, a member state and therefore are eventually going to merge our government policies with theirs in some type of new world order. But just what are these UN policies? I think you'll find that answer even more worrisome. All that and more in this report. And this is what his one quote. We cannot continue to rely on our military in order to achieve the national security objectives that we set. We got to have a civilian national security force that is just as powerful, just as strong, and just as well funded. That was during one of his speeches when he ran for president. Yep, civilian national security force. And there's photos of this, and there's plenty of sources. You can look at this yourselves. So, and I gotta say this. You might have to look up HR 1205 to get the U.S. out of the United Nations bill. I want to see if I can find it here, just for that time being. Yeah, but yeah, I'm gonna check it out, see if I can find it. That has to be done, and I think it's by what's that? Hassey, Representative Thomas Hassey, that's his name. And I guess he was really influenced by Ron Paul. So definitely, I have to really do support this. And yeah, it's right here. Yeah, right here. I was gonna look. It's John Birch Society put this out there. And like I said, they got some good information. I always tell people, the information is essential. So definitely, we got to get the U.S. out of the UN because they are one unacceptable, disgusting entity, nefarious organization. So that's why I tell people on these things, and I don't like it at all. I don't like it at all. So I'm just trying to get all this here. Yeah, so that's the whole thing. So what are they doing? That's the name of the game. What on earth are they doing? It was introduced by Mike Rogers from Alabama. Okay, let me just check this out here. That's the thing. So absolutely, man. You got like I said, friends. I will add that to my memo, and I think it is essential, and everyone needs to start looking at this more seriously. So, because the UN is one dangerous entity, there's a lot of areas that include Rwanda, Haiti, and many other countries they've been abused and murdered by UN troops. So yeah, definitely put this. Yeah, the bill's here. I will add this bill. It'll be from govtrack.us. So I'm going to add that to the memo because I do find this essential. We gotta get out of the United Nations. It's called HR 1205, American Sovereignty Restoration Act of 2015. So it's still in the books. Okay, but definitely support this, Mr. Massey, Mr. Rogers. Okay, and actually Mr. Duncan from Tennessee. But they got some good co-sponsors, and these folks, you got to co-sponsor. They need to get co-sponsored, okay? All right. So this is one here, which I got yesterday from a colleague of mine, Zeta Hall, who's one of my Facebook pen pals, and talked about what they're spraying in South Florida or in Florida, and it's called Naled. Yeah, Naled or Naled. Yeah, Naled. And this is from the extension text, is it called Exo XToxNet or Extension Tech Toxicology Network, which is from Cornell University, which is their Marbury site. And talk about pesticides, pesticide information of cooperative extension force. So it says here, Naled, which is this publication came out September '93. Pesticide information profile, and it says here trade or other names. Trade names include Bromex, Dibrom, Fly Killer D, Lucanal, RE 4355. Regular status. Products containing Naled must bear the signal word danger. And there's a link for that too, so you can read this yourself. It says here, introduction. Naled is a fast-acting, non-systematic contact and stomach poison in insects and mice. It's used as a short-term fumigant to control agricultural pests on ornaments in greenhouses, animal and poultry houses, kennels, and food processing plants. Liquid formulations can be applied to greenhouse heating pipes to kill insects by vapor action. Naled, Naled is also used for municipal and other large area mosquito control programs. It's been used by veterinarians to kill parasitic worms other than tapeworm in dogs. Naled is available in dust, inhalation concentrated, liquid, and ULV formulations. Naled is one of the classic insecticides referred to as organ organophosphates. These chemicals act by interfering with the activities in cholesterase, an enzyme that is essential for proper working of the nervous systems of both humans and insects. So this is say they're spraying along downtown Miami or Wynwood area and Edgewater, Little Haiti, etc., Lemon City. Pretty sick, huh? Please refer to the toxicology and information brief on cholinesterase inhibition for more detailed description of this topic. To say your toxicological effects, acute toxicity. Now, Naled is moderately to highly toxic by ingestion, inhalation, and dermal absorption. Vapors or fumes of Naled are the corrosive to the mucous membranes lining in the mouth, throats, and lungs. By inhalation may cause severe irritation. A sensation of tightness in the chest and coughing are commonly experienced after inhalation. 14. That's the links for that. As with all organophosphates, Naled is readily absorbed through the skin. Skin which has come into contact with this material should be washed immediately with soap and water, and all contaminated clothing should be removed. Persons with respiratory ailments, recent exposure to cholinesterase inhibitors, impaired cholinesterase production, or with liver malfunction may be increased risk from exposure to Naled. Higher environmental temperatures of exposure of Naled to visible or UV light may enhance its toxicity. It's summer down there. You're spraying this damn thing. You're gonna get people sick. And why? How come? How come Flip Flopper Scott or the Department of Health in the state of Florida never take the initiative on looking at these damn things? The organosulfonates insecticides are cholinesterase inhibitors. They are highly toxic by all routes of exposures. When inhaled, the first effects are usually respiratory and may include bloody and runny nose, coughing, chest discomfort, difficult or short breath, and wheezing due to constriction to access fluid in the bronchial tubes. With bronchitis, skin contact with organosulfites may cause localized sweating and involuntary muscle contractions. Eye contact will cause pain, bleeding, tears, pupil constriction, and blurred vision. Following exposure by any route or other systemic effects may begin within the few minutes or be delayed for up to 12 hours. These may include pallor, nausea, vomiting, diarrhea, abdominal cramps, headaches, dizziness, eye pain, blurred vision, constriction, or dilation of the eye pupils, tears, salivation, sweating, and confusion. Severe poisoning will affect the central nervous system, producing incoordination, slurred speech, loss of reflexes, weakness, fatigue, involuntary muscle contractions, twitching, tremors of the tongue or eyelids, and eventually paralysis of the body, extremities, and the respiratory muscles. In severe cases, there may also be involuntary defecation. That means or urination. Okay, psychosis, irregular heartbeats, unconsciousness, convulsions, and coma. Death may be caused by respiratory failure or cardiac arrest. Some organophosphates may cause delayed symptoms beginning 1 to 4 weeks after acute exposure, which may or may not have produced or more immediate symptoms. In such cases, numbness, tingling, weakness, and cramping may appear in the lower limbs and progress to incoordination and paralysis. Improvement may occur over months or years, but some residual impairment may remain in some cases. Naled may cause dermatitis, which is skin rashes, skin sensation allergies. It's corrosive to the skin and eyes and may cause permanent damage. An aerial applicator developed contact dermatitis after using Dibrom. The exposure area may became red and felt burnt. Later, water-filled blisters formed. They became itchy and dry, then flaked off. ACGIHTL, that's from the source. ACGIHTL of its fourth edition and supplements, 1980. The amount of chemical that is lethal to 1/2, 50% of experimental animals fed the material is referred to as its acute oral lethal dose 50 or LD50. The oral LD50 for Naled is in rats is 50 to 280 milligrams per kilogram. In mice is 330 to 375 milligrams per kilograms, and in chickens is 280 milligrams per kilograms. Rats have tolerated a dosage of 28 kilograms a day for 9 weeks with no visible signs of poisoning and with only moderate inhibition of cholinturase. The dermal LD50 for Naled is in rabbits is 1,100 milligrams per kilogram, and in rats was 800 milligrams. Wow. The lethal connection 50 to or LC50 is a concentration of a chemical in air or water that kills half of the experimental animals exposed to it for a set time period. The inhalation LC50 for Naled in rats is 7.7 milligrams per kilograms and 156 mgk in mice. Chronic toxicity, repeated or prolonged exposure to organophosphates may result in the same effects as an acute exposure, including the delayed symptoms. Other effects reported in workers repeatedly exposed include impaired memory and concentration, disorientation, severe depression, irritability, confusion, headache, speech difficulties, delayed reaction times, nightmares, sleepwalking, and drowsiness or insomnia. An influence-like condition with headache, nausea, weakness, a loss of appetite, or malaise has also been reported. Reproductive effects. Once in the bloodstream, Naled may cross the placenta. Teratogenic effects. No information found. Matogenic effects. Naled is matogenic to bacteria. All right. Carcinogenic effects. No information found. Organ toxicity. Naled primarily affects the nervous system through cholinturase inhibition, by which there's a deactivation of cholinesterase, an enzyme required for proper nerve functioning. Lab studies have shown liver damage in rats. Fates in humans and animals. Naled is readily absorbed into the bloodstream, though all normal routes of exposure, skin, lungs, and guts. Metabolism is in the liver. Accumulation may occur in the bones of rats. No accumulation effects have been reported in man. Excretion is through the urine. Ecological effects. Effects on birds. Naled is highly to moderately toxic to birds. LD50 for Naled in ducks is 52 milligrams. 65 milligrams in grouse and 37 milligrams in Canadian geese. Effects on aquatic organisms. Naled is toxic to most type of aquatic life. Some species are especially sensitive to Naled. Fathead minnow, bluegill, and mosquito fish. And there's a handbook on that too, acute tox and all that. Agricultural application of 156 grams of Naled did not kill mosquito fish or tadpoles in irrigation dishes. The 24-hour LC50 for Naled in goldfish is 2 to 4 milligrams. Effects on other animals, non-target species. Naled is highly toxic to bees. Mule deer are more resistant than most wild species life. The LD50 for Naled in mule deer is 200 milligrams. Environmental fate. Several environmental fate studies demonstrate that Naled degrades rapidly under typical environmental conditions. Results of these studies are expressed in terms of half-life, which is the time for one half of the chemical administered to be lost through degradation. Following are results of several representative studies. The half-life of Naled in water in a hydrolysis study conducted at 25 degrees Celsius is 96 hours at pH 5, 15.4 hours pH 7, and 1.6 hours at pH 9. The half-life of Naled in water in a photolysis study is just another 1 day. The photolysis half-life on soil is approximately 1/2 hour under light or dark conditions. Breakdown of chemical in soil and groundwater. Naled is unlikely a source of groundwater pollution. It absorbs only weakly to soil particles, but is nearly insoluble in water. Naled is not persistent in water. It is rapidly broken down if wet, and it's moderately volatile. So soil microorganisms break down in most of the Naled in soil. A breakdown of chemical in water. Naled is rapidly broken down in water. The half-life is about 2 days, even though Naled is practically insoluble in water. Naled is moderately volatile. Naled may produce a pollution hazard and dilution water is improperly disposed of, or if runoff from fire control is not properly contained. Breakdown of chemical vegetation. The organophosphate class of insecticides tends to be readily taken up and metabolized by plants. They tend to have short half-lives in the soils and do not carry over through successive plantings. Plant breakdowns, Naled, and DDBP is created by the debromination of the Naled molecule in a 1.11 ratio relationship. These can be further metabolized or evaporated of. Physical properties and guidelines. Pure Naled is a white solid. Technical Naled is colorless or to yellow liquid with a slightly pungent odor. Naled is stable when stored away from light and under normal temperatures and pressures. It may pose a fire and explosion hazard in the presence of oxidizers. Thermal decomposition may release toxic oxides of phosphorus and corrosive fumes of hydrogen bromide and hydrogen chloride. Naled is degraded by sunlight and should be stored in light-proof containers. Naled is stable and hydrous conditions. but rapidly degrades in the presence of waters and by alkali. In water, it becomes more hydrolyzed with half-life of 2 days at room temperature. Now it should be stored away from moisture. It is corrosive to metals and may attack some form of plastic, rubber, and coatings. If it comes in contact with metals, reducing energy agents, or sul- um, sulfurize, Naled may release bromide and revert to ditch, ditch chlorvodes. It produces highly toxic fumes if it comes in contact with acid or acidic fumes. Person who works with organophosphate materials for long periods of time should have frequent blood tests of their cholinesterase levels. If their cholinesterase level falls below a critical point, no further exposure should be allowed until it returns to normal. Protective clothing must be worn when handling Naled. Before removing gloves, wash them with soap and water. Always wash hands, face, and arms with soap and water before smoking, eating, or drinking. After work, remove all clothes and shoes. Shower with soap and water. Wear only clean clothes when leaving the job. Wash contaminated clothing and equipment with soap and water after each use. Keep contaminated work clothes separated from regular laundry. Exposure. Exposure guidelines. Air concentrations of 18 milligrams M3 or more are immediately threatening to health. OSHA TWA, that's what it says here, 3 milligrams per ME. ACH TWA, which is skin, same thing. NOISH recommendation to TWA skin, same thing, 3 milligrams. Physical properties, CAS, which is 300-76-5, Pacific 1.96, that's in specific gravity 1.96, solubility in water, practically insoluble or insoluble, solubility freely soluble in alcohol, atomic or aromatic solvents slightly soluble in aliphatic hydrocarbons, aromatic hydrocarbons, chlorinated hydrocarbons, and ketones, sparingly soluble in material oils and petroleum solvents. Boiling point 110 degrees Celsius or 252 degrees Fahrenheit at 5 millimeter Hg, which is technical. Okay, melting point 81 degrees or 27 degrees Celsius. Vapor pressure 2.10 by 10 to the minus 3 millimeter Hg at 20 degrees Celsius. Oil, water, partition coefficient, CoEC, which is 180 milligrams. Chemical class use, organophosphate insecticide, and the basic manufacturer is Valent USA Corp. The telephone number and all that's there. I will post all that, and that's why I have to say if they're putting this in there, I believe there's stuff they're putting in there, spraying all over the areas of Miami is completely insane. It's an act of war, and those bastards, including the person that's flying the planes, should all be charged on war crimes. Okay? That's how I see it. Plain and simple. That's really gets my goat, my friends. When you gotta spray all this crap because the name of the Zika virus, okay, the Zika virus, which we all know has been a sham. I have that on my archives, which is called Zika virus exposed. It talks about it, and I post some stuff in my last episode that was done by Truth Media, it's called, which is Aaron and Melissa Dykes. They should be on Infowars, but they do a real good job on doing this. This is totally insane. What they're doing is jeopardizing the economy in South Florida. They don't want people going there because of this fear factor. And you know what? It's gonna get people sick. It can really create convulsions, and some people can be zombified, including animals as well. That's how I see this. I am not impressed by any means. It's just an example. Because even if you hear some of my past articles or archives on my show, I talk about what happened in St. Louis with the nuclear leaks and so forth. And tourism's a big thing in Florida. And you get rid of them, a lot of people will be out of work. And that's what Rick Scott says. Let's get America work. Let's get back to work. Let's get to work. Well, if you're going to support this state of emergency and okay, well, the whole Zika virus, you know what? Then you're a damn fool. Now, anyone else that supports this brand is completely insane. All right, but I know I'm digressing on this. Forgive me. So I'm gonna take a little brief and be back. All right. Okay. So the next one I'm gonna be talking about is from TrueNews.com. Came out a while back. It's based out of Vero Beach, by the way, like a non-for-profit Christian non-for-profit group. It's entitled John McCain's 1969 Tokyo Rose propaganda recording released. It says here, U.S. Senator McCain recorded a Tokyo Road-style propaganda message that was broadcast on North Vietnamese radio in 1969. True News, a non-profit Christian digital news app, obtained the bombshell audio recording and released it today, which is August 4th, on the organization's daily newscast hosted by Rick Wiles True News across the audio recording in cooperation with WSearchR.com, a new media company founded by Charles Johnson. The 1969 North Vietnamese radio broadcast has never been heard in the United States of America. In fact, there has never been any knowledge that such a recording existed. The audio recording was found in a misplaced file in the National Archives in Washington, D.C. The broadcast was recorded by the Foreign Broadcast Information Center, a branch of the CIA that monitors international shortwaves and foreign radio broadcasts. Lieutenant Commander John McCain was shot down over Hanoi by a northern Vietnamese missile while flying his 23rd bombing mission. Both of his arms and legs were broken. He was pulled ashore by northern Vietnamese, who took him to a prison known by POWs as the Hanoi Hilton. McCain was a prisoner of war for 5.5 years. He was released on March 14, 1973, and returned to the United States of America as a war hero. His POW legacy propelled McCain to victory in the race for the U.S. congressional seat in Arizona in 1982. He replaced Barry Goldwater in the Senate in 1986. In the propaganda recording, Lieutenant Commander McCain said he was guilty of crimes against the Vietnamese country and people. He confessed that he bombed their cities, towns, and villages and caused many injuries and even death for the people of Vietnam. He praised the medical care and kindness of his communist captors, even though he came to North Vietnam as an aggressor. McCain said he wished to express his deep gratitude for their kind treatment and that he will never forget the kindness extended by him by the communist North Vietnamese. Senator McCain is running for a sixth term in the Senate. He's facing a strong primary challenge from former state senator Dr. Kelli Ward, a physician in Lake Havasu. The Arizona Republican primary is August 30th. Senator McCain will turn 80 on the day before the primary. Here's the actual script on John McCain's 1969 Tokyo Rose propaganda broadcast on the North Vietnamese radio. To the Vietnamese people and the government of the DRVN, from John Sidney McCain, 624-787, Lieutenant Commander, U.S. Navy born, 29th August 1936, Panama, home state Oregon, shot down 26 October 1967, A-4E aircraft. I, as a U.S. airman, am guilty of crimes against the Vietnamese country and people. I bombed their cities, towns, and villages and caused many injuries and even death to the people of Vietnam. I was captured in the capital city of Hanoi while attacking it. After I was captured, I was taken to the hospital in Hanoi where I received very good medical treatment. I was given an operation on my leg, which allowed me to walk again, and cast on my right arm, which was badly broken in 3 places. The doctors were very good, and they knew a great deal about the practice of medicine. I remained in the hospital for some time and regained much of my health and strength. Since I arrived in the camp of detention, I received humane and lenient treatment. I received this kind of treatment and food even though I came here as an aggressor, and the people who I injured have much difficulty in their living standards. I wish to express my deep gratitude for my kind of treatment and never forget the kindness to extend me. And the full interview is on here too. And I heard it. It was like 1 minute 26 seconds long. And I know I have to say he actually read that from a cue card. All right, and there's been a lot of talk that he actually betrayed his own comrades who was in the POW camps in there as well. But that's just how I examine it, and I can be mistaken. I don't know, but something to really think about, you know. So that can be a campaign attack against him, and I'm not a John McCain supporter because he is a member of the Council of Foreign Relations as well, and he was a warmonger. All right, attacking Iraq and praising the Patriot Act, fight the war on terror, you know, and 9/11 and all that. It doesn't make any sense. And I know many of the Trump supporters are probably baffled when he endorsed John McCain to be the senator instead of supporting liberty-minded individual Dr. Kelli Ward, which I tend to add the interview with Dr. Paul. I'm gonna add that to the memo so you can hear her own words, so you can really check out what she's about and you get all the information right there. This is what I'm heard is like I said, I'm not really too keen on what has occurred with him on that. So, but took this all this long, you know. But people gotta really now people be questioning: is he an actual war hero? You gotta make that decision. I got my views on him, but I'll say as a U.S. representative or elected servant, I am not fond of John McCain. So I'm gonna be back just a little bit. So stay tuned. Okay, I'm just back right now. And this came from the link from wearechange.org. Luke Das is doing a good job. And they did something, oh yeah, well, he's a shill. But you know what? I focus more on the information. This usually came from Alice Sally's or Aaron Nelson from Anti-Media says here, ex-CIA director just endorsed Hillary. What you're not being told. Says here, Michael J. Morrell, the former director and deputy director of the Central Intelligence Agency between 2010 to 2013, is so close to Hillary, but you wouldn't know just that by asking. Once he left the CIA, Morrell became the senior counsel for the Beacon Global Strategies, a consulting firm founded by Felipe Reigns, a longtime ally of Clinton. In a recent op-ed for the New York Times, Morrell details why he's supporting the Democrat in November. As observed by Gawker, the 33-year CIA veteran goes to great lengths in his op-ed to paint his position as nonpartisan, but he fails to mention that he indeed has close ties to this candidate. I served the president of both parties, Morrell writes. I was at President George W. Bush's side when we were attacked on September 11th as deputy director of the agency. I was with the President Obama when we killed Obama and Osama bin Laden in 2011. Do you believe the hype? I am neither a registered Democrat nor a registered Republican. In my 40 years of voting, I have pulled the lever of candidates for both parties. As a government official, I've always been silent about my preference for president. But Morrell's boss at Beacon's Global Strategies, Felipe Reigns, is often described as the puppet master when it comes to Clinton and her campaign. Recently, Reigns was mentioned in the documentary Reiner, a film that chronicles former Congressman Anthony Reiner's 2013 campaign for New York City's mayor. Reiner's wife, Homa Abedin, has been a Clinton aide since 1996 and now serves as a vice chair of her election campaign. Oh, really? All right. All hail to freedom-hating candidates. Hooray, hooray. During the film, Abedin is seen taking orders from Reigns on multiple occasions, according to the Daily Beast, which was summarized the documentary. When the wheels began to fall off Reiner's 2013 mayoral campaign in the wake of yet another sexting scandal, Daily Beast reports Abedin is captured through a series of surreptitious phone calls taking orders from Hillary Clinton's right-hand man and ex-deputy assistant secretary of state Reigns, which highlights the reach of the Clinton machine. In the New York Times, op-ed Morrell, who now works for Clinton's right-hand man, says the Democrat would be best choice for the president because she prepared detail-oriented thoughtfulness, inquisitive, and willing to change her mind if presented with a compelling argument. He observed all this, he says, while working with her during her tenure as Secretary of State. According to the CIA veteran, Clinton understands America is an exceptional nation that must lead the world for the country to remain secure and prosperous, and he vouches for her capacity to make the most difficult decision of all, whether to put young men, women, American men and women in harm's way. This guy saying, "Yeah, I love wet dreams." You know, yeah, like how fascinating. All right. Well, on the surface, Morell's comments seem identical to what President Barack Obama has said about his former Secretary of State, but Morell's involvement with Clinton on a professional level outside the realm of government may offer other clues as to what is motivating him to stand by the Democrat because he sold his soul and pulled his pants. And she's probably like, "If you don't do this, I wanna jump on your bones with my diaper." Allegedly speaking. According to the Beacon's Global Strategy's own website, its firm focuses on international policy, defense, cyber intelligence, and homeland security. According to Little Sis, a database of liaisons between members of government and private industries. One of Beacon's top clients is none other than the Democratic presidential nominee Hillary Clinton. Other high-profile candidates include Republican Senators Marco Rubio and Ted Cruz. Yes, the glamorous dynamic duo. Intercept reported on this link between Beacon Global Strategies, Clinton, Rubio, and Cruz back in 2015. Yes, the Bend Over Bob's trio. Yippee yapping yahooey. You figure it out. According to the December 2015 piece, Beacon Global Strategy seed funding came from Claude Frontham, a former Clinton advisor who now serves as a lobbyist to the U.S.-China Exchange Foundation, a nonprofit reportedly used by Chinese government officials and Hong Kong tycoons to shape American policy toward China. Despite claims of the dangers that flow from Mr. Trump's character are damaging our national security. Oh yeah, so you want a warmongering demonade instead, right? Give me a break. Oh my goodness. A close look at the former CIA director's professional ties to Clinton may prompt us to question whether his op-ed was a bit mere attempt to stand up for one of her top clients. After all, Morell failed to disclose the facts this company provides high-profile foreign policy guidance to the candidates he's now endorsing. But he also failed to disclose that his firm is a funded lobbyist that work with the lockstep with the Chinese government. And another entity that may not see Donald Trump as a viable presidential candidate, which could also help explain why their firm is so invested in boosting Clinton's public image. And you could it actually came from Creative Commons and anti-media and all that, so free and open source. Well. So he wants to. He's Mr. Morell is endorsing the Jezebelian harlot himself to Jezebelian harlot to the New World Order, no other than Hillary Rodham Clinton, a warmonger. And I know there's a lot of big major cases that she's been having health issues. I know a while back I've been reading stuff on the whole thing about she's been getting blackouts by these tabloid magazines and a few others are saying this. This is completely insane, and of course people are talking about her so alleged brain damaging and being off the wall. There's even the photos that she couldn't even walk up the stairs. And I've been saying this. I don't like this woman. I despise her. But I'm not going to beat anyone when they're down as well. And people still want to, if these conditions are applicable, are meritable, and they're going to indict her, you know what the system's going to say? She's not capable of being going to court based on those footages and so forth. Something to really look at too, my friends. As far as I'm concerned, yeah, I agree she needs to be in prison. But the stuff she's seeing, it's not really good. This woman is not in real good shape. I think that's why reading stuff about some of the shows being, some of her campaigns being canceled because of her exhibitions, which is unexplained exhibitions. So you got to really look and see things a lot bigger than what it is. And like I said, I can't stand this harlot, but seeing those conditions she's in is very disturbing. And they want her to be president. Who's actually calling the shots? That's what I gotta say. Ha ha ha. Don't be surprised if George Herbert Walker Bush is involved, or the Council of 13, according to Stu Webb. I'll listen to him now and then too. Always observe responsibly, of course. All right. Well, this one here came out as well, August 5th. I got this from David Icke, by the way. You know, we share information a lot on Twitter. And it says here, the council which banned sleeping is by Rosie Brighouse from politics.co.uk. Something strange is happening in Gravesend Town Center. Fancy a lie down in Woodland Park during one of these balmy summer afternoons. Think of it again. It's now a crime to lie down. Tired of driver thinking of pulling over for a nap in your car? Better just to plow on. It could land you in court. Unless you're homeless or a vulnerable adult, you are banned from sleeping in any of the town's open space, as well as any vehicle, caravan, or tent. And why the sudden war on recumbents in repose? Because Gravesend's Borough Council has declared it so. Behold, the genius of the Public Space Protection Order, the little-known tool of choice for councils looking to sweep pretty much any inconvenience from their streets. Defy this new rule and you face an on-the-spot 100-pound fine, which is like, I think, $250. I could be mistaken, maybe less. Don't pay, and despite the fact these PSPOs are just rules decided by local authorities rather than debated and vote on in Parliament, you're in line for a court appearance and a hefty 1,000-pound penalty. PSPOs may not form a formal plan of the criminal law of the land, but you just have to tell that to a judge. So common law don't exist in Britain, or this particular town of Gravesend Borough. Gravesham. Yeah, it's a sham, okay? That's a great name. Great name for a town, right? All right, so, continue on here. When they were created by 2014's Antisocial Behavior, Crime and Policing Act, Liberty warned these powers were far too broad and vaguely worded, letting local authorities ban absolute anything to be deemed to have a detrimental effect on people in the area with no need for external oversight. They were, in short, ripe or misused and abused, with the vulnerable and voiceless likely to suffer most. Sadly, we were right, and all over the country, with increasing regularity, previously innocent activities are effectively becoming criminal acts overnight. Many PSPOs are laughable in their depression or heavy-handedness. In the final draft of an order in Ferntown, East Dorset, covering what the council itself calls a plain open area open space set aside in perpetuity for sport and recreation, bans cycling, skateboarding, model aircraft, and normally flying kites and excessive noise. These people don't know. I know they had a terrible childhood, did they? The Forest of Dean Council is consulting on proposals to criminalize anyone who dare let their sheep enter the village of Bream, prohibiting centuries-old sheep grazing practices. Meanwhile, Lancaster and Besset Law went with a straightforward ban on anything that causes annoyance. But some are more chilling, some downright discriminatory, and many capable of having a profound negative effect on people's lives with no regard for fundamental rights to freedom of speech and assembly. Kettering Borough Council has slapped a curfew on under 18s who must now be home by 11 o'clock p.m. or risk receiving fines or a criminal record. Besset District Council has banned under 16s from gathering in groups of 3 or more if they are causing annoyance unless a responsible adult is present. Yes, my nannies, please think for me. I want you to raise my kids because you are an elected servant trying to be my master. Master Bader, I would say. The council has defined neither enormous nor responsibility, so it is impossible to know whether you're at risk or offending or not. Normal childhood experiences, hanging out with friends and staying up late, are now illegal and down the country, up and down the country. This is despite a near certainty that children won't have £100 in their pockets or a grand in the bank to pay the fines they could be subject to. The London Borough of Hillingdon has gone several trips further by criminalizing the gathering of just two people, regardless of age, unless they're waiting for the bus. Yes, 1984, THX 1138, and sing God Bless the British World Order. Yeah, New World Order, that is. This means it is now an offense in Hillingdon to meet with anyone, whether you're causing a noise or not. So you should just talk to a wall or speak to a wall or talk to some birds. You're better off doing that than talking to an individual that you may find attractive or just want to find someone interesting. Find them interesting, right? Yes, Salford City Council hits headlines earlier this year by banning foul and abusive language. So remember, whatever you write down around the corner from Old Trafford, Kettering has since followed suit in swearing or shouting. So remember, folks, don't read any Shakespeare books loudly because they're gonna find that offensive. Neither council has defined what counts as foul language or swearing. Perhaps they break the law by telling us? As such, this curtailment of freedom of speech comes with one added bonus that is impossible to tell whether you're breaking the law or not. But the most malicious byproduct of the PSPO epidemic has been targeting of the homeless and destitute. Sleeping in public is a criminal offense in certain ways of Shepway, while Rushcliffe Borough Council is currently consulting residents on the same ban. It is a crime to spend the night in a vehicle or temporary structure in Worthing, and it's similarly illegal to spend the night in the park in Wrexham. Chartwell District Council is currently consulting the people of Banbury on an order which will ban rough sleeping despite Thames Valley Police only receiving 6 reports of people sleeping on the streets between July 2014 and February 2016. And last year, Newport City Council attempted to place a blanket ban on begging and rough sleeping in time for the opening of a new retail development, ironically built on the site of the city's famous Chartist mural. The authorities scrapped the plan after Liberty raised concern the plans were dangerous, disproportionate, and could have breached the Human Rights Act. We've helped force similar concessions or delusions in Birmingham, Oxford, and Chester. Banning rough sleeping on grounds that is having a detrimental effect on the lives of others is naive at best, if not cruel. PSPOs are blunt instruments. They can only punish. They make no provision for helping or supporting those in need. Slapping some of the most vulnerable in society with fines they can't possibly afford simply fast tracks them into the criminal justice system and traps them in a spiral of debt. Under pressure, Gravesham Council added the homeless or vulnerable exemption to their Gravesend PSPO, but this caveat simply raises more questions. Who will assess if someone is homeless or whether any available accommodation is actually suitable for them? Liberty has been challenging PSPOs wherever we can with some success, but as long as the power to issue them exists, people all over Britain will continue to suffer this creeping intrusion on their civil liberties. Almost imperceptibly, people are waking up all over the UK to find their local streets are just as a little bit less free. The PSPO experiment has proven as disastrous as we predicted, and it's high time for these doctrine powers to go. To bring changes, we need to make as much noise as possible about their impact. This weekend, the Manifesto Club is coordinating protests in PSPO's hotspots. You can join them in their current plans or let them know about your own. And of course, Rosie Brighouse is a legal officer for liberty. All these towns in Britain. I could tell you this. You know what the problem is? They are broke. They're trying to find a way to create more revenue, as far as I'm concerned. They're just a bunch of pathetic wankers that talk real big and claim that they're lawyers. They think they're smarter than you, the average Brit out there. As far as I'm concerned, you should go to these town meetings and take a dump and write on their chambers and fling it at them. Why not? And go, yeah, yeah. And you can all have a cup. You can all have a cup of tea and get and spit on them. Okay, that's how I look at these dingleberries. But they're trying to tell people what to do. This is just an example. It's even happening in the United States as well with the homeless. Okay, like Fort Lauderdale, Florida, they like do want to harass people who are feeding the homeless in public facilities and want to give them citations. You know what? Up there's too. Okay, these politicians are nothing more than Palmolive's cowards. They never got their hands dirty, and they have Palmolive's hands. Okay, dishpan hands. They want everyone to do their dirty work. You know, I think every police officer, even in Britain, should get the council. You think you're tough? You go out there, you bunch of pathetic wanks. That's what I would say. But you know what? It's all gonna backfire. I guarantee you that. People in Britain, you're not that dumb. Don't let the cameras fear you. Counter it. Utilize it. Use the enemy's equipment. Remember, all these high techs have a flaw, including these so-called laws and so forth. Totally insane. No victim, no crime. That should be in Britain as well. Okay. End of story. All right. Finally, I'm gonna be reading stuff from the 10th Amendment Center blog. Came out 4 days ago. It's entitled "The Myth of Marbury versus Madison." It's by T.J. Martinell. The common understanding of the famous Marbury versus Madison case is that established the authority of the Supreme Court to determine what the Constitution says. From there, it's held that the court gets to determine the limitations placed on the federal government as well as the states. In short, the rest of the federal government and the states are bound by the Supreme Court decides. But is that the truth? Paper from Northwestern University School of the Law Constitutional Theory Colloquium series seeks to clear up the myths associated with the Marbury decision. In the first sentence of his 2004 paper, the irrepressible myth of Marbury, Michael Stokes Paulson sets the mood for the rest. Nearly all of the American constitutional law rests on the myth. A long, long time ago, 1803, if the storyteller is trying to be precise, in the famous case of Marbury versus Madison, the Supreme Court of the United States created the doctrine of judicial review. Judicial review is the power of the Supreme Court to decide to the meaning of the Constitution and to strike down laws that the court finds unconstitutional. This myth, he continues, allows the Supreme Court to dictate what the Constitution means via opinion, i.e. ex cathedra pronouncements. Though those rulings are supposed to be binding and create firm precedent, that doesn't stop them from being overruled by future courts. Nearly every feature of the myth is wrong. Paulin writes, for openers, Marbury versus Madison did not create the concept of judicial review, but in this respect apply well-established principles. The idea that court possess an independent power and duty to interpret the law, and in the course of doing so, must refuse to give effect to acts of the legislator that contravene the Constitution was well accepted by the time the Marbury rolled around more than a dozen years that the Constitution was ratified. Alexander Hamilton addressed this in Federalist Number 78, writing that the Constitution itself was supreme over any law or ruling. I don't even like the guy, okay? But I want to read on here. The interpretation of the laws is the proper and peculiar province of the courts. A constitution is, in fact, must be regarded by the judges as a fundamental law. If therefore belongs to them to ascertain its meanings, as well as the meaning of any particular act proceeding from the legislative body, if there should happen to be an irreconcilable variance between the two, that which has the superior obligation and validity ought, of course, to be preferred, or in other words, the Constitution ought to be preferred to the statute, to the attention of the people, to the attention of their agents. Emphasis added. Yet Paulson said the power of judicial review was never understood by proponents and defenders of the Constitution as a power of judicial supremacy over the branches, much less one of judicial exclusivity in constitutional interpretation. Incidentally, nowhere in the Constitution is the court given supreme authority over the other two branches. The Constitution itself instead was declared to be supreme, not the will of individuals holding federal office tasked without enforcing it. Additionally, Paulson states that Chief Justice Marshall's opinions on Marbury case make no claim of judicial supremacy. Taking Marshall's statement out of context misrepresents what he and others consider the power of judicial review, which Paulson defined as a coordinate, concrete, co-equal power of the courts to judge for themselves the conformity of acts of the other two branches with the fundamental law of the Constitution, and refuse to give acts contradicting the Constitution any force or effect insofar as application of the judicial power is concerned. In other words, what Marshall and other justices were arguing in Marbury versus Madison was the idea of judicial supremacy, that the Supreme Court was the highest authority in the government. Their argument was that the judicial branch of the federal government derives its authority to interpret and apply provisions within the Constitution from the Constitution itself. It did not derive its powers from the other two branches, but from the same document from which they received theirs. Within the historical context of political science, this was a new and revolutionary idea. Marshall states the Supreme Clause confirms to strengthen the principle supposed to be essential to all written constitutions, that a law repugnant to the Constitution is void, and that courts, as well as other departments, are bound by that instrument. The logic of Marbury implies not, as it so widely assumed today, judicial supremacy, but constitutional supremacy. The supremacy of the document itself over misapplications of its own dictates by any and all subordinate agencies created by it. Paulson writes. An example of distorted statements he cites an oft-quoted statement from Marshall's opinion that it is emphatically the province and duty of the judicial department to say what the law is. Taken by itself, it may sound like he's arguing for judicial supremacy, but Paulson claims not only does this quote ignore relevant statements in the same paragraph, but it is just paraphrasing Hamilton from Federalist 78, number 78, which he says the interpretation of the laws is the proper and peculiar province of the courts. Marshall goes on to write, those who apply the rule to particular cases must of necessity expound and interpret that rule. If two laws conflict with each other, the court must decide on the operation of each. Paulson argues that this concept of judicial independence is wholly separated from judicial supremacy, in which the Supreme Court's opinions are considered binding on all other branches of government, including the states. This is a far cry from a claim of judicial supremacy. Paulson writes, it is merely a statement that, while performing the judicial task, calls for deciding whether an act of Congress departs from the Constitution. The courts are up to the task. It is within judicial province to make such a determination and to make it independently of what Congress has determined. If this is the case, it bears little resemblance to the modern Supreme Court, which has a joint hands with other two branches of the federal government in violating the Constitution by issuing rulings that are not only uphold their own constitutional behavior, but go beyond even its own authority. That's right. So there's no such thing as opinions, my friend. And this is defended under the concept of judicial review, in which the Supreme Court gets to decide the legality of any legal decision, regardless of what the Constitution itself says, and all branches of the government are bound to enforce their decision. Almost all of these problems plaguing constitutional law, Paulson believes, are the result of the fundamental betrayal of Marbury's premise and Marbury's logic. Correctly read, Marbury stands for constitutional supremacy rather than judicial supremacy, Paulson writes, and constitutional supremacy implies strict textualism and as a controlling method of constitutional interpretation, not free-wheeling judicial discretion. While Paulson's critique on the Marbury myth is insightful and refreshing, is also indirect demonstrations of a fatal flaw in the federalist system. Without the powers of the states to check unconstitutional authority via nullification. That's right. What if the Supreme Court or any branch of federal government go beyond their constitutional authority and simply issue rulings based on their own beliefs and consider them binding on the whole nation? What if all three do simultaneously or fail to check the others? To fear of a tyrannical courts was expressed by Anti-Federalist Brutus, likely Robert Yates, a politician and judge, who wrote in Anti-Federalist 78 and 79, there was nothing to prevent judges from supplanting the plain meaning of the text with their own misinterpretation. It says here, there is no power above them to control any of their decisions. There is no authority that can remove them, and they cannot be controlled by the law of the legislature. In short, they are independent of the people, of the legislature, and of every power under heaven. Men placed in this situation will generally soon feel themselves independent of heaven itself. Fortunately, Jefferson and Madison foresaw this problem arising as well. They understood the obvious problems with giving the federal judiciary the exclusive authority of enforcing limits of the Constitution. It was on the basis they crafted on the Kentucky and Virginia resolutions. In those resolutions, they declared that the states, which had created the federal government, were duty-bound to resist unconstitutional acts no matter which branch they originated from. As Jefferson stated in the Kentucky Resolution, there are several states composing the United States of America are not united on the principle of unlimited submission to their general government, but that by a compact under the style and title of the Constitution of the United States and of amendments thereto, they constituted a general government for special purposes, delegated to that government certain definite powers, reserving each state to itself the residuary mass of right to their own self-government. That government can be created by this compact was not made the exclusive or final judge of the extent of powers delegated to itself, since that would have made its discretion and not the Constitution measures of its powers. If the judiciary failed to defend the Constitution, Jefferson wrote, nullification was the right remedy. And the myth of Marbury, which Paulson's paper attacks, is a perfect example of why. That was T.J. Martell. And I have to say, absolutely. They can have an opinion, but if it's in the Constitution, and it's unconstitutional, null and void. Plain and simple. Like the Affordable Care Act. 5-4 decision. Oh, my opinion is constitutional. No, it's not. Their rhetoric is null and void. And people, you guys think it's the courts. You can nullify them. That's what's great about the 10th Amendment. Bum, 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 bum. Read the Bill of Rights. It's self-explanatory. Null and void. Of all the other garbage opposition and what they want to do to us, they think we should revolve around them. It's like when I see dumbed down Chelsea Clinton, see another CFR, Canada CFR sidekick talking about tougher laws on gun violence, and I'm like, give me a break. Just smack that clown. She's just another bimbo for members of bread and circuses. That's one thing I like about this. It has merit. So that's why, folks, always read these things and go further. Because remember, the past is today's greatest teacher. Now you learn about the myth of Marbury versus Madison. Well, I have too. So that is all for now. And thanks for everyone for listening. Plus, feel free to download and share this throughout your social media networks. If you have any questions, comments, regardless, or you can send me something that's interesting that I may look at in future reference. Any ideas or recommendations, send them over. However, please send your correspondences with decorum. You can hit me on Facebook, Twitter, Google+, Spreaker, iHeartRadio, Tumblr, YouTube, Freedoms Network, and Scene.life. Or you can email me at LokiLuck3, number 3, look, number 3 altogether, at gmail.com. Well, I decided to play a song, and from a good friend of mine from New York, actually he's from the Gnostic Front, Roger Miret and the Disasters. I've seen him, worked him one time with Voodoo Glow Skulls in 2003, and it's more like a rock kind of thing. It's pretty cool. I like it a lot, and they're entertaining. They're fun. I like to have a good time. And I think it's sad because he showed you a headliner. I heard didn't really do too well, but supporting act, people had a good time listening to him. He's fun. It's from his first album, and it's called Run Johnny Run. Entertaining. I have a good time liking it. Like the song, so hopefully you do too, okay? Once again, thank you for your time. Plus, always remember that demoniac resistance is healthy for the soul and can liberate humanity. Until next time, take care of yourselves, keep on spreading love, and may your guardian spirits be with you.
Window. Kiss on the walls of a fashion prison.